Fettling, the final frontier. These are the ramblings of the idiot boy Ellis, his continuing mission to explore strange old musty buildings, attics, sheds and garages, to seek out old drums and new old stock parts, to boldly go where no one has gone before. Well, not for a good while anyway, and usually for good reason. My name's Mike Ellis. I have a problem. I rescue, refurbish, restore and revitalise vintage drums, in particular Premier drums. In this programme I'll share with you my adventures, ups and downs, ins and outs, triumphs and tragedies as I lavish some TLC on vintage British drums. Welcome to the Drum Fettler. We came, we saw, we fettled. Welcome to the Drum Fettler. Today we're going to be getting stuck into those concert toms. We're also going to be taking a look at one of Premier's most underrated and overlooked bass drum pedals. We've got other little bits and bobs that you might be interested in. Oh, by the way, those of you who are wondering, Wicker Rabbit is fine. He's feeling much better now and he's perfectly hoppy. Right, perfectly. Silver Star 12 and 13 toms. The hardware has been removed and cleaned. All these 43620 lugs, they're going to be used on the 14 inch. They're going to be transplanted there because, as you will remember, 12 and 13, they're going to be getting the 44020 high tension lugs. Now, the filler has gone off very nicely, so that can be sanded back. The 13 is going to be fairly straightforward. Just need to sand them back nice and smooth. A bijou waftet of lacquer to give it a little bit of shine. That's nice. But the 12 is a little bit more interesting because a little bit of history stamped in here. Well, there should be. As you will remember, pre-international drums are not international size. Now, you're probably wondering, why do we call them pre-international drums? Well, it's because they were the ones before the international size. And back in the day, it wasn't that easy to spot them. So, Premier very helpfully stamped the inside of the drums. Now, as you'll remember, we talked about this last time, heads most commonly then were white coated or smooth white, so you couldn't actually see inside the drum. So what they would do is directly opposite the vent hole, they would stamp the words international size, so a prospective purchaser could have a little peekaboo through there and see the stamp to confirm that it was international size. So we'll just have a look. Let's see if this has one. Yes, and there it is. International size. Now I'm going to have to be very careful not to sand that off. I've got to keep that because obviously it's quite important part of its history. I shall proceed with extreme caution. People often say to me, "You don't look like a real doctor, I'm going to get dressed." People often say to me, "What's your favourite Premier pedal, Mike?" Well, it's not what you might think. Most fans and aficionados of Premier are familiar with the 250 and the 250S bass drum pedals, as well as the much revered 252, but often overlooked is the 251. It first appeared in the early 70s as the 1251, a budget pedal supplied with Olympic kits, but it soon found its way as the 6251 onto Beverley kits and in the 80s as a Premier option, then as the 7251 on Super Olympic and Hammer kits. Production continued well into the 80s, but I'm wondering, as it's a 252's numerical predecessor, if it was originally designed to be a high-end replacement for the 250S. I found a 1251 at the very dusty end of the workshop. It's got some interesting features that I think make it a candidate for something that was intended to be a great deal more important than it actually ended up to be. And it is my belief that the brief for the design of this wasn't a budget pedal to go on Olympic drums, it was a replacement for the 250S. The more ambitious 252 team took away their thunder, because the 252, with all its things from there and its twisty and that and everything, and it went on to become a hugely successful pedal, means that they were right. But let's just take a quick look. You can see the 1251 has these two little raised sections that are clearly marked with two circles, but they're blanked off. These eventually would become the location for screw down spikes. Why were they put there in the first place if they weren't intended to be used for that purpose? The pedal positioning is interesting as well, because as you can see, it allows you to set the angle of the foot plate. A pin goes in the large hole and a smaller pin goes into the centre hole, and the foot plate is centrally mounted. But you can lift it out, and should you want to, set it at a slight angle away from the bass drum head. And also it works the other way. This is a feature that found its way onto the 252, albeit in a slightly more sophisticated form. The 1251 foot plate is an unusual item because it appears to be made out of a bit of old guttering, and I have heard tell that it had an industrial application, and some bright spark at Premier, maybe when their factory was being built, picked a piece up and went, ooh, we can make a pedal foot plate out of this. Good thinking, Jenkins. Get it off to the design shop. That's 1251. The 6251, or the 7251, as it was marketed as the 6251 initially with Beverly and then with Premier, and the 7251 with the rather short-lived Hammer brand. The lockdown spikes have now appeared underneath the footplate. It is a much more substantial affair. It's got a hinged heel plate, cast footplate, with rubber inserts again on the heel and on the main footplate part. Conventional strap as before, single spring, and it has got all the angle adjustment, central, left and right. The angle adjustment feature was later dropped and replaced with a simple U-spring bar on the later 251. That's the 6 or 7 251. Now, I did want to show you a 251 because that had twin springs, but more importantly it had a solid linkage. I did have one of these, but not so long ago I did a charity gig for a very large worldwide charity that shall remain nameless. And unfortunately I left it behind, and of course when I got back in touch with them later to say, where's my pedal, it had miraculously vanished. I think that the 251 and its incarnations was meant to be a new high-end professional level pedal, but it was superseded by the design of the much superior and lot sexier 252 pedal. Having said all that, it's still a great pedal. I use one myself, obviously there's one here, and they're still fairly cheap. You can pick them up for £25 to £35. Obviously I would recommend you get the 251 because with the solid linkage, twin spring, it's a lot more substantial. Slight problem. The 12 and 13 Silver Star toms are going to have the 440/20 lugs. I was just going to nip over there, pull out the bin of 440/20 lugs and use those, but as you can see, there's not very many in there, so I'm going to have to make some phone calls. Hopefully, I'll only have to make one. So, let's go over there and make a call. Yes, it's me, Mike. How you doing? I need some 440/20 lugs. Premier, can you help? You can. I suppose 8 to start with. When can you get them to me? No, you couldn't get them off today, could you? Wedding anniversary. I see. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, right, no problem. You've got my address. Cheery bye. Needs to get his priorities in order. Well, that's 13-inch done. I have to say, I'm really very pleased with the way the inside of the shell has come out. I don't know if you can see that. I've managed to get rid of all the internal scratches and it looks great. Just a little waft of lacquer there. So much better than it was. So yes, very well chuffed with that. Right, I can press now drilling the mount hole for the 4/4/20 lugs, even though I haven't got enough for both the 12 and the 13 yet, but there's enough here for us to finish off this drum, and when the rest arrive then I can get the 12 done. Should we put Mr. Internal Damper on? I think we should. Right, let's see if we can find some tension rods for him. Now the new heads for the 13 aren't here yet, so what I'll do is I'll just go back into the little store behind me and find something just so we can get the drum completed. Excellent. One down, many more. One down, many more to go. Thirteen's done. Lovely, isn't it? Really do like it when a drum comes together so nicely. Gives me a lovely warm feeling down inside, you know, like sudden loss of bladder control. Anyway, Same again now for the 12-inch. We talked not so long ago about the 39250 tom socket. Now we're going to be talking about a relation, the 39235 tom mount. The 39235 first appeared around 1974 along with the 39250 tom holder. It was the tom mount. These were bolted to the side of the shells and were used to mount the toms on the tom holder which came off the bass drum. Floor tom legs were, in the early 60s, held on by these little spring-loaded mounts, which were replaced in 1968 by this, which is the 38351, which is really the parent of the 39235. This was still being used on floor tom legs in the mid-70s when the 39235 came along. It was used for floor tom legs. It was also used on the 698 cymbal arm mount on the bass drum. In 1976, Premier started using the 39235 on its 298 fold-out spurs. The hole on the 39235 is around 11.5mm. That's for the Premier tom arm. However, the legs on Premier floor toms were around 9.5mm. There were two versions of the 39235, and for all intents and purposes you couldn't tell them apart unless you knew the hole sizes, because even though the part number is cast inside, the part number on both of them was the same, so they were obviously using the same casting but just drilling different sized holes. Around 1978 they started putting the 39235 on floor toms to hold the legs to replace the 38351. To confuse things even more, there were not just two versions of the 39235, but there were two versions of the 39235 in black, which were used on Olympic drums and later club drums, basically the same, one's black, one's chrome. The situation was simplified in 1982 through 1983 when the 39235s with 11.5mm holes were used for tom holders, spurs and floor tom legs. The 39235 lasted pretty much in active service until around 1991-1992. Just an FYI, 38351 and the 39235 share the same mount hole pan. One more thing to watch out for on the 39235 is the hand nut. Inside the hand nut, if you didn't know already, is a hex nut. So the actual hand nut is cast and doesn't have a thread on it. So if you do happen to take them off, or you think it's a good idea to take them off, be very careful, because there is inside there a not very captured hex nut, which, as you see, just drop out. Now that's not normally the end of the world, but if you happen to drop it on the floor, it will of course disappear into another dimension through a space-time, another dimension, bollocks, continuum, time wormhole, bollocks, as does anything small you drop on the floor. Just like this. See? Gone. Bollocks. Going to tackle the 12-inch now. Regarding the international stamp, I don't know if that comes out, but I put a little piece of masking tape over the stamp. Now I know what you're thinking, a little bit of masking tape is going to be no match for a piece of sandpaper. Well, it's not so much to protect it, to remind an over-enthusiastic buffoon such as myself not to sand over that bit. There's pilot holes drilled. I'll just make those gradually bigger until they're the right size for the lugs. 12 is now drilled, ready for the lugs, but they're not here yet, so that's something for next time. I've had a go at repairing the rat with not a great deal of success. This is definitely the worst of the two so far, with little worn bits on it, so let's have a think about that. Just going to put some lacquer on the inside now to smarten it up, and then it's looks when I get them. That's looking rather smart now. If you find yourself in need of Premier parts, and let's face it, who doesn't, pop along to the website. Even if you can't see what you need, drop me a line through the contact form. Also goes with Beverley drums, hammer drums, and of course Olympic. Thank you for watching the Drum Fettler. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I hope you enjoyed it. Well, I hope you enjoyed it enough to want to watch another one, because there will be another one coming soon in the not too distant future. Computer, end program and exit.